pass it over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Sam, and hi, everyone. I'm delighted to welcome you to this webinar, which is the second in a series of webinars on health literacy in British Columbia, sponsored by the BC Health Literacy Networks in partnership with other organizations. In this case, it's with the UBC Digital Emergency Medicine Department and the Center for Collaboration, Motivation and Innovation, both of which are associated with our network of networks. Before we start with the presentations, I'd just like to say a few words about the BC Health Literacy Networks, which have been operating for about 7 years. So could you advance the slide? Some of the networks and organizations involved with us are shown in this diagram. The steering committee that I chair develops and coordinates various activities to address our goals, which are, could you advance to the next? To increasing health literacy skills of the population of BC, developing structures and expertise to support members of the public, and increasing the ability of stakeholders from different fields and sectors to work collaboratively. They come from a strategic plan that was developed by a number of people working in the field of health literacy in BC and ratified in a roundtable in 2010. You can find the plan on the Public Health Agency of BC website by clicking the URL. We work toward these goals through a number of activities that were listed on the last, on that slide, and overseen by our steering committee and implemented by members with support from the Public Health Association and the Health Promotion Group at Children's Hospital. For further information, you can advance. I suggest you consult our website or send me an email to the address here. So with regard to today's webinar, you can advance now. As I mentioned, this is the second in a series that we plan to continue on aspects of health literacy work in BC, the first of which took place in February and was on food literacy. One of the examples that was discussed in that webinar was the Farm to School project sponsored by the Public Health Association of BC. It also, as this webinar, focused on school children, which is on the UBC, and this, I'm sorry about, the Farm to School webinar is posted on the PHABC website, and this webinar will be posted there as well. So today the presenters are Helen Novak-Loescher, Associate Lead of UBC's Digital Emergency Medicine Team, Antonio Hyman, Project Coordinator in UBC's Digital Emergency Medicine Team, Sheila Ronsley, Vice Principal at École Marlborough in Burnaby, and finally Georgia Lukapoulis. Not sure if I got that correct, Georgia, who is a grade 7 teacher in Burnaby. So they're going to say a little bit more about themselves during their presentations. And that's all I have to say at this point, and I'll turn it over to Helen to continue.
Thank you, Irv, for the introduction, and thank you all for joining us today. My name is Helen Novak-Loescher, and as Irv said, I'm the Associate Lead of Digital Emergency Medicine at UBC. I lead an interdisciplinary research team that works on projects related to digital health in health service delivery and education, clinical trials, participatory community-based health research, and program evaluation. So when my team got the opportunity to develop a proposal for a digital health literacy program for kids, I was over the moon. This project was near and dear to my heart, having a background as a drama teacher with a love of all things techie and all things arty, and also being the mom of a middle schooler. So with support from a BC Charitable Foundation, UBC Faculty of Medicine, and the Lawson Foundation, we embarked on developing Learning for Life. My colleagues and I are going to share some experiences of our journey so far. But before we get into it, just like to have a bit of a quick poll of the audience so that we can understand who's in the virtual room. So the first question is, in what region are you located? All right. Okay, looks like we got a nice mix. Everybody inside British Columbia today. It's a good place to be. So next question is, what type of organization do you work for? And Sam's got some selections up there to pick. Right. Okay, and next, what best describes your occupation? Wow, lots of health professionals, some teachers, some administrators, other. Great. And last but not least, have you ever used the Learning for Life resources before? All right, well, perhaps after this discussion, you'll want to connect up and give it a try. So thanks for answering. This is great. We've got a really diverse group here. We will move on to just talking a little bit about the agenda for the talk. So first, I'm going to provide a bit of a background and an overview of Learning for Life. I'll also talk a bit about digital health literacy and how and why we address it in the program. Then I'm going to turn it over to Sheila and Georgia, who will talk about their experiences using Learning for Life in the classroom and as Learning for Life curriculum developers. For the last part of the talk, Antonia will discuss our evaluation and share some findings from the pilot research, and then at the end we'll have some time for questions and answers. Those questions we don't have time to respond to during the session. We'll be sure to provide written responses in follow-up after the webinar. All right, so Learning for Life. I'll tell the story, a little bit of the story. So Learning for Life essentially combines classroom instruction with online exploration to build capacity for digital health literacy and healthy lifestyle behavior skills for grades 4 to 7 students, teachers, as well as parents and families. To support informed health decisions and address the increasing prevalence of type 2 diabetes, Learning for Life builds digital health literacy skills and promotes healthy lifestyle behaviors among intermediate elementary students in grades 4 to 7. The initiative produced curriculum-based resources for educators to use in BC classrooms, which includes a comprehensive teacher's toolkit. We've got 2 editions so far. Student workbook, interactive online graphic novel, and interactive online comics. So with the support of the Lawson Foundation, Learning for Life developed an approach for exploring how technology can support students in being healthier by building competencies in digital health literacy while balancing screen time with healthy behavior. Also facilitate learning and goal setting around 5 healthy lifestyle behaviors, so physical activity, nutrition and healthy eating, sleep hygiene, stress management, and social connectedness. So as I said, Learning for Life has two components. In the first iteration of Learning for Life, where we developed a prototype with the help of student and teacher end users in 3 schools. As part of the UBC team, I was engaged to develop the first edition of the toolkit. In our current pilot study, Sheila and Georgia co-authored a new and improved second edition with new and expanded health content, and both are available on the website. Specifically, the resources are made up of that toolkit for teachers. There's a facilitator's guide. It can also be used by health educators or people doing community type programs. There's lesson plans, in-class and take-home activities, and other extension activities, resource lists, reading lists with reviews and links. Just a whole bunch of resources. There's also, as I said, interactive online graphic novels. At the bottom there on the screen, you can see that's a screenshot of the website with the 3 online comics there that we have. And they're designed to accompany the facilitator's guide for kids to explore the content being taught in class, and really to serve as that centerpiece example of a digital health tool, so the medium being the message. There's also on the website, when you go to download the tools, survey, where teachers or others can give feedback for ongoing improvement of the tools. And I think so far we've had about 600 downloads to date, so that's good. I should say the activities that were developed have all been mapped onto the core competencies in the BC curriculum, and just want to underline that it's designed to be flexible, so teachers can pick and choose activities, do not have to complete everything in the book in a sequential fashion to get value from the material, and they can be adapted to student needs or areas of content already being covered in the classroom. So why did we focus on digital health literacy? Not just because I work in a digital health office and it's just very fascinating, but really digital health literacy or e-health literacy means being able to use technology devices like computers, smartphones, whatever, to be able to search for, find, understand, and assess the quality of health information and apply that information to be healthier. So to be able to get the benefits offered by digital health, people need to know what's available, where to find things, how to use the tools and resources, and how to evaluate the quality and fit with their needs. So why is this important for this age group? Well, childhood is a crucial time to shape health-related behaviors. Interventions during childhood can establish enduring healthy habits and curtail future incidents of chronic disease, including type 2 diabetes. Interventions that foster competency in digital health literacy can build foundational skills for kids to use throughout their lives to stay healthy. Currently, a lot of health education material of this nature is geared to ages 13, grade 8 and up, more the teen years. Trends indicate that kids are going online earlier and spending more time there. So Learning for Life fills a gap in educators' repertoire of resources teaching healthy behaviors and digital health literacy, specifically to students in the elementary years. All right. So the fun stuff. We developed the tools based on a holistic framework of digital health literacy that includes 6 literacies: traditional literacy and numeracy, computer, media, science, information, and health literacy. So taken all together, these combine to form the foundational skills required to fully optimize people's experiences with digital health. So the Learning for Life toolkit is framed around and addresses these 6 literacies through a combination of content and activities. So first, foundational to it all is health literacy, which of course relates to the skills required to interact with the health system and engage in appropriate self-care. Health-related content that's covered here helps build the foundation for kids to be empowered to maintain their health as they become older and become adults. Computer literacy is the ability to use computers to solve problems. Well, my daughter is great at using technology to solve problems, like how to find a recipe for slime, how to solve the problem of being bored, finding instructional YouTube videos for how to do gymnastics moves, those kind of problems. But Learning for Life directs these skills towards solving health problems, building on kids' competencies in tech to branch out to new areas, namely health. Learning for Life is also designed to foster media literacy, the combination of cognitive processes and critical thinking skills needed to be applied to media and the messages that media deliver. And in the internet world, an information literate person knows how knowledge is organized, how to find that info, how to use the info in such a way that others can learn from it too. If you kind of envision the internet as a big library with search tools like Google and a catalog of over 8 billion resources, the need for internet users to know how to develop and execute search strategies as well as understand how this knowledge is organized is really, really important. Science literacy is the understanding of how to collect scientific data using methods that are used to build knowledge, discovery, scientific ideas, testing scientific ideas. Students learn about how individual perspectives and experiences contribute to the creation of knowledge through participating in evaluation of their experiences with Learning for Life. And in the prototype development project and in this pilot project, really building in those data collection sessions where we visited the schools or had, or educators collected that data, that was a sort of a living lab of being able to interact and understand how one's own voice contributes to knowledge through research. Finally, traditional literacy and numeracy, essential in the online world. The internet is still primarily text-heavy. Learning for Life provides opportunities to practice these skills and connect them to health-related content, as well as other ways of knowing, like art and various different means of expression. So all the literacies, toolkit framework built around those facets of digital health literacy, and those topics include things like physical activity, nutrition, healthy eating, sleep hygiene, stress, social connectedness, take-home and class activities, as I noted. I'll just share a couple of examples, for, like as I was just saying, in terms of the science literacy as they're participating in a research project through Learning for Life. There's some activities that Georgia and Sheila built in around understanding data and how do we learn from it, what do quantitative and qualitative research look like, some examples there. Also, what is informed consent? Why is it important? And similarly, in the media literacy content, kids are able to critically analyze various media, produce their own media, such as comics or parodies of advertisements, those kinds of things. And I'll just flash up here a couple of examples of, in the prototype development, some of the school kids, I think these were grade 6, 7, making their own health comics. And I was just floored by how amazing their work was. There's another example of the tell your own health story. And then here is an example of app development, kids designing their own app for health. So really these health comic projects and these kinds of things are examples of kids engaging with content through art, through language, through narrative and storytelling. Okay, so I would just say, like, some of the examples of these highlight the interconnectedness of the aspects of digital health literacy and multiple ways of interacting with the content that taps into diverse ways of learning and expression. Great. So we kind of moved from that prototype to the pilot study through iterative participatory development. Really working with the kids and the teachers in the schools to help us inform the development of the tools, test them out, give us feedback, help us improve those tools so that we could go on to the next phase. So key findings from that development phase were, and this is no surprise, that tools should be engaging and age appropriate for youth. When we spoke to the kids about the online graphic novel, We found that experiences that mixed reality and fantasy resonated with them, and they found it engaging and fun, and it was also able to communicate important health messages and show they're applicable in real life without overly personalizing it. Students were really enthusiastic about being able to take control and make some choices and test out different choices, being able to see how their choices affected the character, whose name was Ellen. We found that students also enjoyed that exploration, finding out information for themselves, learning in non-traditional ways, learning through doing and experiencing rather than listening. So findings from this prototype development helped us make improvements for the current suite of resources grounded in end user experience. So before I turn it over to Sheila and then Georgia after that, I'll just highlight a couple of things. One is because we explore a range of healthy behaviors, it's imperative for us to develop learning for life programming and resources with a multi-sectoral and interprofessional panel of experts, most of whom sit on our Learning for Life Advisory Committee. We've had so much input, so much help, so many people putting so many hours into this initiative. This allows us to develop relevant, impactful, sustainable resources and ensures the messaging aligns with key stakeholders in BC Child Health. As we continue to share the program, the advisory and partnerships will continue to be a foundation and network for growth, and we're really very grateful to be able to work with such a great network. Before I turn it over, I'll just highlight again the online graphic novel. There's a link included here, and as I noted, there are 3 different adventures to choose from at this point. One is The Legend of Spaghetti, which is about nutrition, Silent Emoji, which is about stress and social connectedness, and Sheep Trouble, which is about sleep hygiene. I won't do a demo now, but this may be something we, if we have time at the end to look at, but really encourage you to check it out in your own time. And without further ado, I'll pass it to Sheila.
Thanks, Helen. Wonderful. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today, especially because we saw from the poll that most of you are from the Lower Mainland, where it's beautiful and sunny today. My name is Sheila Ronsley, and I'm one of the co-authors of the 2nd edition of Learning for Life. Currently, as you were told, I'm the vice principal at École Marlborough, an elementary school in Burnaby. Having the privilege of working with young ones every single day, as well as being the parent of teenagers, has really highlighted for me the importance of this collaborative work. Work that considers our changing world, that considers the new and old stressors that affect us all, and that makes mental health a priority. It's meaningful work. It makes us all ponder the question, how can we lead healthier lives? This is the question that Georgia and I posed with Antonia when we presented at a professional day in Burnaby with educators in February, and it really made everyone think about themselves as well. As you have heard, the toolkit is a labor of love. Many passionate educators, medical and health professionals, and other community stakeholders played a part in seeing this resource through to fruition. If we want our society to be healthier, it seems to make good sense that we work together in order to provide reliable information and resources. Through the discussions and the research we did, it really made me reflect on my own health. One of the things that seems like common sense, which may sound silly to those of you who do this for a living, which I see as most of you, but now I try and share with everyone the message to students, staff, parents, friends, random people at cocktail parties, is that our physical and mental health are strongly interconnected, and that what we do for our physical health also benefits our mental health. So we all have mental health, and this is something we've really been trying to share with students and through our whole school community, and that mental health will fluctuate throughout our lives depending on what is happening and how we're able to cope with life's beautiful ups and downs. Sometimes just talking about it will help motivate people to get moving or to make a behavioral change in their routine. The more we know, the better chance we have of being as healthy as possible. I do wish this would mean that I would always choose to go for a long, beautiful trail run instead of sitting on the couch scrolling through my social media, but I digress. I'm sure you're all better about that than I am. So how do we recommend you use this toolkit? really, it's up to you. It's designed in sections featuring and exploring various aspects of health literacy. So each section, as you can see there, includes an overview, essential questions, learning standards, which is part of the new curriculum, lesson plan, materials, Blackline Masters, and medically vetted websites. This is a huge bonus for busy teachers. That this has already been looked at by people who know and understand. The websites are current, local, and research-based. As Helen said, it's not a sequential toolkit that needs to be followed in order. We suggest teachers or counselors. So I'm not sure, am I echoing to the rest of you, or?
I just muted the person in the other sound. Sorry about that.
Okay, thank you. We suggest teachers or counselors peruse the toolkit and then jump in based on what you know about your students' knowledge, interests, and needs. It is meant for teachers to be responsive to their students. This also means to think about how we teach about health in a preventative way, but not scaring students. For example, if you eat too much fat, you'll have heart issues. We don't want to share that message. We also don't want to make false promises. If you do all of these things, you will live for a long time. And this is one of the things that I really learned from working with medical and health professionals about this. We knew about not scaring children, but I think it was really interesting that we have to be careful that we're not saying if you do this, then this will happen. There's a section in the toolkit called Other Considerations, which highlights the fact that health and well-being are complex and multifaceted concepts, and that there are some factors that children do not control, such as ethnicity, family history of disease, or social determinants of health. It's also true that not all of our families can afford healthy or fresh food, which tends to be more expensive and take more time to prepare. So being sensitive to these factors and thinking about how we can empower students without disrespecting their family situation, as we all know, is very important. So some classroom highlights. I've been lucky this year to co-teach using the Learning for Life toolkit with Sue Hara, a grade 5-6 teacher, and it has been such an amazing experience. You can see a picture of us teaching there. We look super happy. I've been the one taking the photos. So a couple of weeks ago, as I was preparing for this webinar, it was suggested I include a photo of me teaching. Since we're now doing a lot of our health literacy learning outside, walking and talking, Sue and I decided, we kind of giggled and we said, let's get the students to pose as the perfect class so that everyone would think we're the perfect teachers and that everyone watching the webinar would think that preteen students all sit up straight and eagerly take in every single word we say. Well, those of you who are teachers or parents or coaches or who have ever seen children this age know this is never the case. So these photos are a bit staged. But the students have honestly been so engaged and interested in learning about how they can take control of their own health, which is very exciting for us. We started out by doing a baseline of the students' understanding of digital health literacy and then brainstorming questions they have about mental health. It was surprising to me, with all that we see in the media these days, that they had heard of mental health, but that the negative stigma was still quite strong. So we set up a wonder board in the classroom to display the questions on new learnings. So you can see there, students add what they're learning, and then also they put sticky notes up with questions. So we're mixing kind of different types of media. One of the first lessons which really piqued their interest was what Helen was talking about, and using Sheep Trouble, the online comic. This was from the first edition of Learning for Life, focusing on sleep hygiene. For those of you who are a bit older like me, the online comic is similar to a choose your own adventure style story where the students get to make their choices. So, for example, playing video games late into the night instead of going to sleep early the night before a test. They could see what might happen with these different choices. And this was very engaging early on. And we challenged the students to share this information with others. So one student offered to share some sleep hygiene tips with the whole school at an assembly, and we have 930 students, and he appropriately dressed up in a robe to do this. 2 other students agreed to teach a lesson to a primary class about the benefits of sleep. And you can see them teaching there and brainstorming with the students about why it's a good idea to get lots of sleep and about sleep routines, all the things that they had learned in their class. We also shared this information with our parent community through our website and through Twitter and through our newsletter. We gave them websites from the toolkit, and the title was, "Are you getting enough sleep?" Because we were trying to catch and pique the parents' interest about what they can do for themselves and their children around sleep hygiene. So we have been planning our next lessons based on student interest. So we've really jumped around. The teacher I'm working with would say, okay, we need to tackle nutrition next. She would use personal storytelling to enhance the lessons, and students really responded. We knew it was making an impact when one student sent the teacher a website she had found based on something from our last discussion. When we noticed them talking about their love of sugary drinks, we decided to do the sugar shock lesson, where we measured out amounts of sugar in each drink. Then we served them delicious cold water with slices of lemon and lime. And we learned that some of them had never tasted lemon or lime before. One of the best parts about teaching this relevant subject has been seeing that students transfer the knowledge into their lives. We're excited to share, they are excited to share what they're learning and about their stories from home. Right now, they're walking daily and trying to be as active as much as possible. The class has signed up for the Walk 30 challenge that Burnaby and New Westminster is doing, and they're walking 30 minutes a day. So the other day we went down Royal Oak Avenue, which those of you who know Burnaby, it's a big hill. And then we all ran back up, the teacher, myself, and the students, we all ran back up in intervals. When we got to the top, we spontaneously started waving at cars, and there was so much joy. We pointed out to them the link between getting our hearts beating and feeling good, positive, and hopeful. It was such a wonderful moment. I think because of this background knowledge that they have gained through the Learning for Life lessons, they are really ready to delve more deeply into an inquiry on issues related to their own health. So spreading the word about their learning has been important. They created this wonderful bulletin display in our main foyer for parents and students to learn more about mental health. Notice it says, "Did you know everyone has mental health?" And then they share there about different parts of it. We're working with them to break down the stigma and give students and their families more strategies for good health. It has been truly meaningful work, and I look forward to seeing where they take us next. I would like now to pass it on to my colleague and friend, Georgia Lukopoulos. That's how you pronounce it, Irv, Lukopoulos, to speak about her experiences teaching the toolkit with older students.
All right, thanks so much, Sheila. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for taking the time to listen today. I'm very honored to be part of this team, and I would like to share with you my experience with co-writing and teaching this toolkit. Yes, my name is Georgia Lukopoulos. I know, sorry, my last name is quite difficult. I'm a teacher in Burnaby. I have been teaching for about 16 years, and most of those years have been as a teacher, as a grade 6-7 teacher. I co-wrote this toolkit using my teacher lens. But as Sheila and I worked through the lessons and researched the websites provided, I couldn't help but reflect on my own life. I have 2 young children, and the 5 critical lifestyle behaviors that Helen mentioned, sleep, eating healthy, keeping physically active, staying socially connected, and managing stress became even more important while managing day-to-day life with work and family. So here you can see a picture of me teaching, and my students are holding up their health goals for this term. I'll talk about them more in depth a little bit later. So we go to the next slide. You can see some brainstorming my students have done in groups while exploring the 5 critical lifestyle behaviors. So over the years as a teacher, I am finding that my students want to talk about mental health issues, such as how to manage anxiety and how to keep your mind and body healthy. Perhaps because there's more of an awareness of these issues in social media, or because life has somehow become more fast-paced, or the demands on children are greater. Regardless of the reasons, the more we address health literacy in the classroom, children gain more knowledge of this area. Also, as teachers, we often ask our students to do research projects, but we don't always have the time to see which websites they are using and if they are credible. So all websites, resources, apps in this toolkit have been approved by a panel of experts in the field of medicine, and it makes the research part of these lessons easier to tackle. Students have done after much work around these areas. The toolkit connects well to the physical and health education curriculum for grade 4 and 7. It's mapped out quite clearly in the toolkit, but many lessons also connect to ADSD, math, and other parts of the curriculum. So this toolkit enables students to have these important conversations. I have now taught parts of this toolkit for the past 2 years. I taught it to 2 different groups, and both times I started in different places, and the students' interest and my planning led us to slightly different directions. My last year class really dove deep into their inquiries and wanted more time in this section, whereas this year I have a few students who need more support social emotionally, and I've really focused on the stress management and social connectedness lessons. So I'd like to share with you some of these highlights. So my students really enjoyed learning about Live 5210, an online resource called Live Healthier. I believe this concept inspired the new food guide, and it's easy to remember. 5 servings or more of fruits and veggies per day, no more than 2 hours of screen time a day, and at least 1 hour of active play, and 0 sugary drinks. This seems to be easy for kids to grasp, and they often refer to it when goal setting. The healthy eating part of this toolkit, specifically exploring the old and new food guide, inspired me to cook with my class and talk about food safety and encourage cooking at home, which the new food guide promotes. There are many extension lessons in the section and allow students to create healthy recipes and look closely at what a balanced diet could look like. These concepts are also linked to the online comic, The Legend of Spaghetti. My students also enjoyed the debate, Are You Really Connected Socially When on Social Media? This year, my students have really enjoyed debating, and this was one of the topics that we explored. The discussion was rich and meaningful. Watching the commercials and thinking critically about advertising was also engaging for my students. Media literacy is so important for today's generation of kids, but also thinking about themselves as consumers and how they can be mindful of advertising and media factors that influence mental well-being and self-identity. They explore questions such as, how will this knowledge influence you as a consumer? What will you do differently as a consumer? The Media Smarts literacy videos provided are also useful when discussing these concepts. And finally, my students also enjoyed creating and sharing health tips on page 86. So using the reliable websites and sources provided. Some of the tips they provided were around why sleep is important, what happens to your body when you don't get enough sleep, how to create a good sleep schedule, how to manage anxiety and stress in the moment, and long term. So focusing on things like going for a walk in the forest, talking to a trusted adult, having quiet time, or using the meditation app. So just this week, we worked on one of the lessons called I'm All Stressed Out, Reflections with a Friend, which allows us to change negative self-talk to a more positive way of seeing things. If the students had a hard time changing the negative thoughts to positive, we talked about asking questions instead, such as, if the negative talk was, I'm not going to get better at this, instead ask, do I need to ask for help? Who should I ask? What can I do to make my work better? So there's a close-up of 2 examples there you can see. It's truly amazing how much, especially the age group that I teach, grade 6 and 7, how much negative self-talk they do. And they were really honest about sharing all the negative self-talk that they do on a constant basis. And, you know, it's really important to explain to them that it's a mindset, and it comes with practice. The more we talk positively to ourselves, the more naturally it'll come to us. And adults are just as guilty of that as well. So I noticed there's some teachers listening. So just a note for the teachers, as an organizational piece that might be of interest is before diving into this toolkit, I did 2 specific things. I first created health groups. Just like we create literature circle groups, I created groups, and these are posted in my classroom. So if it's time to research, discuss, or explore, I just say, turn to your health groups, share, and then report back to the rest of us. I also displayed our learning, just like Sheila did, on either a board in the classroom or we use the hallway bulletin board. So the toolkit is meant to not just talk about social connectedness, but engage in connection while exploring these health-related concepts. All right, the next slide talks about goal setting. The toolkit emphasizes goal setting, which connects well with the core competencies. This is meant as a reflective piece. Teachers can pick and choose what works for their students. Sometimes I ask my students to goal set and share with their health groups. Sometimes they had to write down their goals, set specific plans to achieve their goals, and reflect on progress. Sometimes they just posted their goals and we shared them in community circle. The goals are not meant to judge students if they do not meet their goals, but allow them to be mindful of them and to reflect on what they want to work on. So along with goal setting, there are also many tracking activities where students can track their sleep, diet, technology use, and how many sugary drinks they consumed. Again, I collect these to see their completion of work, but not to judge and make them feel bad about their honesty. I often use myself as an example and say to them, I check my phone before bed, which probably ruins my sleep, or eating that bag of chips while watching Netflix is probably a bad idea. But the more that they hear that we do these things as well, then they don't feel guilty or they feel like they're doing something wrong. The next slide is a close-up of some of my student goals for this term. It is interesting to note here, in the last 2 years, sleep is the most popular goal. I think lack of sleep is an issue for many kids, whether social media is a factor or lack of a sleep routine or a busy schedule. I know with my own kids, lack of sleep affects their minds and bodies, and they pretty much lose their minds when they are overtired. You know, they are 3 and 6, but sleep is crucial for everyone. The final thing I want to touch upon is if teachers are looking for a summative assessment piece, the inquiry activity on page 79 is what I have used as a way to evaluate my students on their understanding of all these concepts. Once the students have grasped the 5 critical lifestyle behaviors, then they are ready for the section. These questions on the slide you see were created by my last year class, and they're quite small, but I think you can see some of the questions there. Why do we need sleep? Why is sleep important? How can we get rid of stress? And how does stress affect us? How does stress make us feel or act? How does a balanced diet affect our sleep? And how does an improper diet affect our sleep? How does social media influence and impact us? Do social media influences set the standards, or do we make the standards? How can we de-stress? And how does sleep affect stress levels? So inquiry requires teacher guidance, as most teachers know, and there has to be discussion around what a high-level thinking question is, general understanding of this toolkit, as I mentioned. I worked with each of these groups to help them expand their questions and create sub-questions, and then we presented them. I'm looking forward to hearing what my students this year would like to explore. Especially because I have a straight 7 and they absolutely love inquiry projects. Before I end, I just want to thank you once again for listening. The lessons in this resource will help support your students in understanding, exploring, and thinking about how we can lead healthier lives. I have truly enjoyed writing it and co-writing it and teaching these concepts. At the end of the slideshow, Sheila and I have left our email addresses. Please feel free to email Sheila and I, or if you have any further questions. I'm going to pass it along to Antonia. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Georgia and Sheila, for such a wonderful insight into how the materials can be used in the classroom. And Helen, thank you so much for such a great introduction to the program. My name is Antonia Hyman. I have been working as a researcher on the Learning for Life project, supporting the research in the schools and the translation of the research findings to help develop the latest edition of the toolkit and materials. My background is in psychology, having done a master's in health psychology with a focus on behaviour change and health interventions. So for the remainder of the session today, I'll be talking about the research component, highlighting our approach along with some key findings and learnings. Okay, so the research was a really core part of the project evaluation.
and also formed an important part of the teaching material for the program itself. There were therefore multiple goals of the research. Firstly, to assess the quality and the feasibility of teaching the program in schools, assess the impact of the program, so the efficacy of the program to teach skills in digital health literacy and to lead to improvements in healthy lifestyle behaviours, to engage the children in the research process to inform, to foster understanding for the students, but also to inform best practices for conducting research with this age group. And finally, to build knowledge and understanding of the key elements of scientific literacy, one of the key components of digital health literacy, as mentioned by Helen at the beginning. So we engaged 3 diverse schools across British Columbia to implement and test our Learning for Life program, one in Penticton, one in Squamish, and one in the downtown east side of Vancouver. Beginning in January 2018, our team introduced the program and collected baseline data at each school. Then we gave teachers approximately 6 weeks to teach the program, and we then returned to wrap it up and collect data at a second time point. We then also collected data 2 months later to assess any slightly longer lasting changes and learnings. So Dr. Kendall Ho, the team lead and emergency physician, attended the introductory sessions, which were designed to be delivered in a fun and interactive way to introduce the program to the students and explain what the research involves. We also had a public health dietitian and valued advisory member with us, who talked to the children about health and answered questions related to nutrition. The students really enjoyed speaking to Dr. Ho and Jerry and had a lot of questions for them. And we explored the concept of digital health literacy with the children, which can be a tricky concept even for adults. It's not a term commonly used. So we had a lot of interactive discussion with them to talk through the meaning of that. We also demonstrated some digital health tools, such as a wearable heart rate monitor and a phone app that measures blood pressure. So it was really important to the team and the advisory team members to ensure that the students were able to make informed decisions about their participation in the research, and also to understand and learn from the experience itself. So we used a number of different strategies to foster understanding and learning. One was to use some visual graphic tools to support the consent process and one of the surveys, which I will show you on the next slide. We used a lot of interactive discussions in the workshop, emphasizing the voluntary nature of the research and the purposes of what we are doing. And there are actually lessons, as Helen mentioned, lessons built into the toolkit itself to foster understanding of research, different types of research methods, such as focus groups and surveys, as the children were going to be taking part in such activities. So this actually forms a part of the toolkit for teachers to explore independently with the students to foster learning in scientific literacy. So here is on the left, a graphic version of the assent form, which accompanied the written version that we gave to children, explaining the research process and what was involved. Just to make it sort of fun and engaging and capture their attention. And on the right is a graphic version of the e-health literacy scale, which is a scale that measures skills in digital health literacy. And that scale involves children selecting how much they agree or disagree with a series of statements, such as, I have the skills to be able to decide if online health information is good or bad quality. So each question on the survey relates to an image on the graphic form there. So we, as I mentioned, we conducted the research in 3 pilot schools with 11 participating classes in total. It was mixed methods research involving surveys and focus group discussions with both students and teachers. And the results presented here are a summary of data from just 2 of the 3 schools. When we worked with the 3rd school, some considerable adaptations were necessary to support student understanding of the questions, and therefore the methodology was different to the approach of the other schools. So in this 3rd school, there was a much higher proportion of English language learners and students with learning difficulties, and they were also a slightly younger age group than the participants from the other 2 schools. We learned a lot from this and are in the process of analysing the results from this school, but we're keeping them separate from the results from the other two schools due to the differences in the approach. So from the 2 schools that we're going to be presenting data on today, we received consent to participate in the research from 161 students and their parents or guardians, so 62%. Just a snapshot of the demographics. The 3rd school is included here just for comparison. As you can see, the 3rd school is in pink, and they had mainly grades 4 and a few grade 5. The other 2 schools in Penticton and Squamish were mostly grades 5, well, grades 5 and 6. One school was 100% grade 6. So we first, one set part of the data that we collected was on technology usage, and we asked children at what age they recall using the internet on their own for the first time without supervision. And we found that 65% of students reported using the internet autonomously by the age of 7. And as you can see from this graph, many reported using the internet as young as 5 and even under the age of 5, which really emphasizes the need for programs such as Learning for Life to really build a foundation in digital health literacy at younger ages, as much of the current programming is very much directed at older ages, at teens. We also asked children, how often do you go on the internet at home by yourself, currently at the time of the study? And 75% reported usually or all of the time. So again, quite a significant amount, emphasizing the need for teaching these skills in this age group. So we then conducted the eHealth literacy scale, which measures skills in digital health literacy, both before and then after the program. And we found that the scores improved after the program was taught, and this was found to be statistically significant. So although the increase was modest, this is very promising and exciting considering that the material was only taught over a 6-week period. And actually, there's a lot of material in the toolkit that can be taught over a much longer period of time, with the potential for these skills to improve even more. So we also asked, we wanted to assess the impact of the program on students' health knowledge. So one question we asked was, from what you have learned in class, what are some ways you can stay healthy? And we found that students were able to identify an average of 2 ways to help you stay healthy, primarily around healthy eating and physical activity and sleep. And 27 students used at least one Canadian guideline that was taught in the course when recalling healthy behaviours. So we also asked, because of what you have learned in class, are you making any changes to stay healthy? And we found that after the program was taught, 62% of children reported that they are currently making changes to stay healthy, or that they have been making changes for a while because of what they learned through the program. 29% reported that they hadn't yet, but they plan to in the immediate or distant future. And at 2 months follow-up, 62% of children reported they are also currently making changes to stay healthier, or that they have been making changes for a while because of what they had learned. So this really speaks to some of the examples that were given earlier by Georgia and Sheila around the goal setting activities and the tracking different healthy lifestyle behaviours in the material. So we also conducted focus groups with teachers, and some of the key findings were that teachers reported finding the lesson plans very easy to adapt to diverse class dynamics and competency levels. Lessons were easy to integrate into other subjects in the curriculum, and that overall students really enjoyed and learned a lot from the programme. So the project next steps, where we're at the moment, is to really increase awareness and use of the Learning for Life resources, and to increase awareness and participation of families to support students and parents in learning these key topics. To entrench Learning for Life as a core content in the BC curriculum, and to establish a sustainable programme evaluation for Learning for Life for continuous quality improvement. So I'd like to mention a very special thank you to our funders, the Lawson Foundation, and a huge thank you to the Health Literacy Network for inviting us to present today and hosting this webinar series. And thank you also to the CCMI team for all your support with making this webinar happen. And I'd like to conclude by thanking you for your time and attention today, and invite you to connect with us if you're interested in learning more about the programme or have any suggestions. We have all of our contact details here and our website to find out more. And we do have some time now for any questions that people may have. And if, as Helen mentioned, if we don't get to the questions now, then do feel free to contact us and follow up. But just before we go there, I would just like to pass over back to Irv to say a few words.
Thanks. I just got unmuted, which is nice. So basically, I just want to thank the individuals and organizations that made this webinar possible. First of all, I'd like to thank Helen, Antonio, Georgia, and Sheila for their excellent presentations. I'd also like to give a special thanks to Sam Burnett and his colleagues at the Center for Collaboration, Motivation, and Innovation for providing technical support for this webinar. In terms of organization, I'd like to thank the Center for Collaboration, Motivation, and Innovation for allowing us to use their webinar system for this webinar and for helping us with the technical aspects of the system. And of course, I have to thank UBC Digital Emergency Medicine for the wonderful work that they have done on this project, and for consenting to offer this webinar on the project. And finally, I'd like to thank the health promotion group at Children's Hospital, especially Andrew Tugwell and Shannon Vogels, that helped with the administration of the webinar. And as Helen did, I'd like to thank all of you for attending this webinar, and hope that you will attend future webinars on health literacy. And also tell your colleagues that this webinar is on the Public Health Association website. So if they want to listen to it and watch it, then they can find it at, on that website. So that's all I have to say. And I think we do have time for some questions.
Thank you very much, Irv. Yeah, so at the moment, I don't see any questions in the chat box or the question box. So if anyone does have any questions, we can hold on a few minutes to see if anyone would like to pop their questions in there. In the meantime, while we're sort of waiting to see if anyone would like to ask any questions, we can do a quick demo of our online graphic novel, just to show you. You can access the online graphic novel on the link that is provided on the screen there, and we can just quickly show you what it looks like now. Okay, so when you get to our website, you will see both a student and educator option. So for the educators, that's for any teachers or educators, that's where you access the toolkit and accompanying sort of workbooks and resources there. And for the students, they can go on to this page here, where we have 3 different graphic novels. We talked about them a little bit in the presentation. We have Sheep Trouble, which is focusing on sleep and explores sort of the consequences and to not getting enough sleep. And Silent Emoji is focusing on stress and managing stress. Going through a really fun story about one of the characters having a lot of homework to do, and panicking in preparation for an exam or homework that's due the next day. And then our most recent version is The Legend of Spaghetti, which explores a balanced diet and goes through a story around that. So they can be used on their own for children to explore in their own time. There's sort of lessons inbuilt into the graphic novels, but they also link with lessons in the toolkit that guide how to use them and how to kind of pull out some of the key messaging from these online graphic novels. And I'll just quickly go into one of them, The Legend of Spaghetti, to give you an idea of what it looks like. And currently it is designed primarily to be used on a computer or a laptop. It can be used on an iPad, but we are currently working on improving the usability on an iPad and tablets. So it's, yeah, question of scrolling through, and there's interactive options for children to choose which path they want to go, and there's a journal entry feature as well, and eventually children will be able to download the journals so that they can put in their own ideas and thoughts and reflections and favourites, recipes or foods, to make it even more interactive. Okay. So yeah, unless I am missing any
One other question that came up is the B&E workshop provided at professional development days around the province, or a train the trainer. Like, how would people learn to use the toolkit?
Yeah, that's a great question. There isn't a specific one planned at the moment, but it is something that we are working on putting together over the next weeks and months, a really kind of comprehensive resource package for teachers and educators to have those materials and be able to help guide using the toolkit.
And Irv has a question as well. I'm just going to unmute him.
Yeah, my question came from everything that was said during this webinar, because I felt that it was, this is really a groundbreaking initiative that actually might be able to be played out in other population groups. And in particular, I was thinking about older adults and the opportunity that some kind of a vehicle like this might be able to be applied in that kind of setting. So I wonder if the presenters might like to comment on that.
I think it's a great idea, and you know, in some of the other work that we do in the Intercultural Online Health Network, work with elders, community members, and I think that is one of the building digital health capacity is something that is really important in a multi-generational kind of context as well. And I know we do some workshops in that regard, but maybe really interesting to sort of do a co-generational look at that with elders and youth working together.
Great. I think that might be it for the questions so far, but please do contact us if you have any thoughts or would like to get involved or any further questions. Thank you everyone for your time and attention today.
Thank you everyone.